president signed into law a new anti-terrorism bill.
You will lose your liberty.
Sometimes the fear becomes so powerful in a place where it's like electricity. And you can't stay still. And you can't stay still. Power of fear. Sometimes the fear becomes so powerful in a place where it's like electricity. And you can't stay still. And you can't stay still. Power of fear.
There is a chance the President of the United States can use this disaster to carry out the New World Order.
This mass terrorism is the new evil in our world today.
Hello, I'm Alex Jones. I'm a radio and television host based in Austin, Texas. And for years, I've been exposing the criminal activities of the global elite, also known as the New World Order. My friends, throughout history, powerful people, powerful institutions have always sought to expand their control, to expand their hemisphere of domination, their empires. And they've always used terrorism, that is the threat of the outside enemy, as a pretext to get their population behind a war, or behind giving up their liberties, behind giving up their freedoms, as a way to, get behind the mother government, behind the homeland, to sacrifice. And Americans are no different. We've been manipulated many, many, many times. So now we're going to look at a few of the older examples and some of the newer examples of this, and then we'll cover what really happened on September 11th and who stands to gain. And I would challenge all of you out there to research the information you're about to see, because it's all true. It's all documented. In fact, in this film, we explore about 10% of the information. There is so much information out there, folks, so many documented red flag, smoking gun incidences where the government carried out September 11th and other terrorist attacks, that I have rooms full of documents, transcripts, news articles that are all mainstream. In fact, the government never denies any of this stuff. They just put a spin on it that, it's an accident, we screwed up. Well, you're going to see today the globalists didn't screw up. They carried out these attacks. Now, I just want to spend a few minutes here, going over just a couple of examples in the last couple thousand years of elites using terrorism that they perpetrate against themselves as an excuse, as a pretext for war, as an excuse to declare war on their own people or on a foreign enemy, to consolidate and expand their power. It's called problem, reaction, solution. Create a crisis, create fear, and tell the people, give up your liberties, get behind this war, submit to the emperor, cheerlead this expansion of tyranny, and we'll protect you. And that's the siren song of dictators. It's a fraud. It's a lie. It goes against every example of history we have. And for those of you that are doubting that elites could be carrying out these type of dastardly deeds, you just don't know history. And you don't understand that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that there is truly nothing new under the sun. Way back, ladies and gentlemen, almost 2,000 years ago, Nero, the degenerate, inbred emperor of Rome, set the city ablaze so that he could blame it on the Christians, who were becoming a very popular minority in the city. He was having trouble persecuting them. The more Christians he persecuted, the more Christians popped up. The more people were converted. Well, he had a very successful purge in the weeks and months after he set the city on fire. And before he committed suicide, he admitted that he had set the city ablaze. And then, of course, we have some more modern examples of this. In 1898, William McKinley, Navy, blew up the Maine in Havana Harbor as a pretext for war with Spain. And the United States expanded its control and grabbed dozens of islands, coaling stations in the Pacific. And now you read the history books and declassified documents, U.S. government documents, they admit that the U.S. government blew up its own ship and blamed it on the Spanish.
Seines besten Blutes fühlen und dieses Wissen zur Führung der Nation erhoben hat und entschlossen ist, diese Führung zu behalten, wahrzunehmen und nicht mehr abzugeben.
We have Adolf Hitler in 1933, just a few months after being elected, on February 27th, firebombing his own Capitol building, the Reichstag, and blaming it on his political enemies and declaring a police state crackdown for the Reich security and announcing fatherland security, the equivalent of homeland security, and a new national police and an end of local control. Everything we're seeing, I'm about to show you the documents, that's happening in 2002 into 2003. Then, of course, we have Roosevelt allowing the Japanese to attack Pearl Harbor back on December 7th to get us into the war. At least Roosevelt didn't attack Pearl Harbor himself, but they definitely had prior knowledge. 12 days before, it's a declassified public document. Roosevelt's White House had received the communique that Admiral Yamamoto would attack on the morning of December 7th and deal a death blow. In fact, U.S. naval forces, destroyers, sunk 5 submarines just a mile outside Pearl Harbor. They're at the mouth of the harbor. Depth charged them, sunk them. They've even recovered one of them at the bottom. And when they radioed the base camp and said, we're under attack, they were told to stand down. And the rest of the base was not put on alert. While a mile outside the harbor, multiple submarines are being sunk. This is all confirmed, declassified public information. Think about that. The U.S. Navy, a mile outside Pearl Harbor, depth charging and sinking submarines and confirming that Japanese submarines were attacking and entering the harbor, and still the base sat there and no one put out an alert. Everybody continued with their day off. Think about that. Here's another example. Confirmed, ladies and gentlemen, the headline from the Scotsman, U.S. prisoners claim Roosevelt left them in the Philippines deliberately. You read on deeper into the article, the prisoners don't claim. The documents have been declassified. The Roosevelt White House, and Churchill, Winston Churchill was aware of it as well, ordered the U.S. Navy, Roosevelt did, not to allow 7,000 American civilians to evacuate the Philippines, despite the fact that they had over a month to do it. There were empty naval ships leaving full of Navy and Marine Corps personnel. But men, women, and children were left on the island. And it turns out from these documents that have now been declassified, and I interviewed the still living victim's lawyer, Anthony D'Amato, on my syndicated radio show, the documents say, prepare to leave civilians there to be captured. So, the old government documents. So, think about this. 7,000 Americans. So they could use it as wartime propaganda. Oh, look, the Japanese have our women and children. And many of these women were raped and killed. They had their heads cut off. Children were killed. The men were killed. I've talked to Vietnam veterans who were on board these ships. Gulf of Tonkin incident might not have occurred. I love these headlines. This is out of the San Antonio Express News. Folks, it actually came out back in 1964 on San Diego television. It just didn't get national coverage, that this was a fake incident. People knew back in the 60s. Again, I've talked to Vietnam veterans who were on those ships. The Vietnamese did not attack our ships. And I'm no fan of the communist Vietnamese. The point is, it is a historical fact, ladies and gentlemen, that our ships were not actually even attacked by the Vietnamese.